The untold story behind Sean Diddy Combs and the City College tragedy. Before Sean Diddy Combs became a music mogul, a household name, or a business icon, there was a night, December 1991, that changed many lives forever. That night, in a crowded gym at the City College of New York, a charity basketball game turned into a nightmare. Thousands packed into a space designed for fewer than 3,000 people. The exits became blocked, the crowd surged, and in the chaos, 9 young people tragically lost their lives, including a young man named Dirk Swain. Dirk was only 20, a college student with hopes, dreams, and a future ahead of him. More than 30 years later, Sean Combs faces serious legal convictions connected to a very different but equally troubling chapter of his life. Yet for the families of those 9 young people, and for the community that remembers, the question remains: why was there never real accountability for what happened that night? Jason Swain, Dirk's younger brother and a filmmaker, sums it up simply. It's not about revenge. It's about remembering. It's about justice that still feels unfinished. A night meant to inspire, but turned to tragedy. The event was billed as Harlem's Holiday Party of the Year, a celebrity charity basketball game organized by Sean Puff Daddy Combs and rapper Heavy D. Big names like Run DMC, Boys to Men, Big Daddy Kane, and Jodeci were set to perform. The cause? AIDS education, a pressing issue in 1991, just weeks after Magic Johnson publicly announced he was HIV positive. Thousands showed up, eager to be part of something special. But the gym's fire code told a different story. The capacity was 2,730, yet reports estimate over 4,000 people crammed inside. There was no proper crowd control, no barricades, no clear signage for exits. Narrow stairwells quickly became choke points. One exit was blocked by a table. Something no one could have anticipated would become deadly. Charisse Miles was 20 and attending her first major event alone. I was excited until the crowd pushed and pushed. People started falling, screaming. It was terrifying. You couldn't move. You couldn't breathe. The pressure grew until 9 people were crushed to death, suffocated by the sheer weight of bodies pressed together. Among them was Dirk Swain, a young man who had survived a bullet wound just months before and was celebrating his first night out in months. That night, Dirk's ticket remained in his pocket, the last token of a night that should have been full of hope. The aftermath, loss, silence, and the struggle for accountability. In the days that followed, headlines told the story of a terrible tragedy. Families grieved. The city was in shock. But as the public mourned, there was little movement toward justice. No criminal charges were ever filed against Sean Combs, Heavy D, or the college officials responsible for allowing the overcrowded event to proceed without proper safety measures. Families of the victims pursued civil lawsuits. After years of legal battles, the state settled for $3.8 million. Sean Combs contributed about $750,000. A judge found Combs and Heavy D each 50% responsible, and City College shared the rest of the blame. Yet there was no public apology, no direct admission of responsibility. Combs' only public statement was, "City College is something I deal with every day of my life, but it can in no way measure up to the pain that the families deal with." Meanwhile, his career skyrocketed. By the mid-90s, Puff Daddy was working with the notorious B.I.G., winning Grammys, and becoming a music industry powerhouse. To many, it seemed as though the tragedy had been buried, ignored in favor of fame, fortune, and flashing lights. Jason Swain says, "The families and those young people were left without a voice, while Sean Combs went on to build an empire." A darker chapter emerges. Fast forward to 2025, Sean Combs' name appears again in headlines, but this time tied to something even more disturbing. He was convicted on charges of transporting women for prostitution, related to a federal case alleging a coordinated system of coercion, control, and abuse within his inner circle. Prosecutors described an operation that used threats, drugs, and manipulation to force women, including singer Cassie Ventura, into sexual acts with paid escorts. These encounters were called freak-offs and took place in hotel rooms that became scenes of exploitation. While Combs avoided charges of racketeering and sex trafficking, which could have resulted in a life sentence, he still faces up to 20 years in prison. For those who lost loved ones at City College, the recent conviction felt like a painful echo from the past, an unfinished story about accountability and justice. Sharice Miles reflects, he's never taken responsibility for what happened back then, and here we are again, with more lives affected. She recalls watching the trial with disbelief, especially when Combs suddenly celebrated after being acquitted of the more serious charges. It was about him, not the victims, not the people hurt, just him being free again. Remembering those who were lost. It's important to remember the people behind the headlines. Dirk Swain wasn't just a name or a number. He was a brother, a son, and a young man with dreams. A graffiti artist inspired by the Brady Bunch's dad, who was an architect. Dirk hoped to follow that path. Jason Swain, his brother, says, Dirk was more than a victim. He was family. When we found him with that ticket in his pocket, it broke us. Sharice Miles remembers the chaos with clarity. It was supposed to be fun. I felt grown up that night. Then I saw people die right in front of me. She also remembers seeing Sean Combs run past during the panic, powerful and influential, yet not stepping in to help. Jason and Sharice both feel the tragedy has been forgotten, erased by time and overshadowed by Combs' success. Combs briefly referenced the tragedy in a 1997 album with the lines, "To the City College deceased, may you rest in peace. To the families I never meant to cause no pain." Jason says, that wasn't an apology. It was a lyric. 30 years have passed and still no real remorse. The investigation and what went wrong. A 1992 report commissioned by then-Mayor David Dinkins made one thing clear. This tragedy was preventable. The gym was severely overcrowded. Exits were blocked. There was no crowd control. One door was jammed by a table. When police finally cleared the exit, an officer saw Combs inside, standing with two women, each holding cash. The judge later wrote that Combs' claim of being caught up in the chaos was contradicted by eyewitnesses who said he and his staff created the deadly bottleneck. It does not take an Einstein, Judge Benza wrote, to know that young people paying $20 for a celebrity event wouldn't be easy to control if they were shut out. The medical examiner's report confirmed the cause of death for all 9 victims. Asphyxia from chest compression. Jason Swain sees a painful pattern. This wasn't a tragic accident. It was a failure of responsibility. And it was just the beginning. Legacy and the struggle for truth. Sean Combs is a man who has mastered reinvention. From Puff Daddy to P. Diddy to Diddy, the party promoter who became a rap legend then a business mogul. But behind the glamour, controversies, and accusations have followed him for decades, ranging from violence to abuse allegations. His empire grew even as questions about that night in 1991 went unanswered. His brand became synonymous with success, while families remained unheard. The recent conviction revealed a darker, more systematic abuse, coordinated efforts to silence women, maintain control, and keep a private world of exploitation hidden. For Sharice Miles, this isn't just another news story. I was a kid when I saw people die. For years, nobody cared, not the media, not the industry, not Sean Combs. When we see him at award shows or releasing documentaries about his greatness, I ask myself, does anyone remember City College? 9 young lives lost, families still hurting. This story is complicated. It's about power, tragedy, and survival. It's about a community still waiting for justice. It's about remembering those who died, not as ghosts or statistics, but as real people who deserve better. Sean Combs' legacy will forever be tied to both his successes and the shadows that linger from those tragic moments. Moments that cost lives and left families searching for answers. For the families of those 9 young people, it's not just about what happened in 1991 or the headlines today. It's about the lasting impact of being overlooked, ignored, and unheard. Jason Swain reminds us, we don't want people to forget Dirk or the others. They had dreams, they had futures, and they deserve to be remembered, not as an afterthought in a story about a superstar. Sharice Miles hopes that by telling her story, others will listen. It's not just about blame. It's about learning. It's about making sure this never happens again.